Welcome to the web series on home and community-based services from Alaska's Department of Health and Social Services Division of Seniors and Disability Services. Today's episode is focused on the application for provider certification. Our learning objectives include a provider's responsibilities, what comprises an application packet, your resources to complete your packet, what would make your application incomplete, and how to submit your application to Seniors and Disability Services, or SDS. So let's talk about your responsibilities as a provider. It's crucial that you know the regulations and conditions of participation and implement policies and procedures that meet the standards outlined within these laws. This assures the state of Alaska and the federal government that the services that you are offering are in compliance. What makes up your application? Your application packet will include SDS forms and then will be broken into two separate sections: core requirements, which include your provider information, and your operations manual, which will include the policies and procedures that demonstrate how your business will operate. For core requirements, you'll need to produce proof of licenses, insurance, how your staff will be trained on critical incident reporting, your organizational chart and personnel list, a program administrator packet that documents qualifications and completion of required trainings, and for recertifying providers, you'll also need to submit a quality improvement report that documents how the agency is monitoring the quality of its services. An operations manual, which will include all of your policies and procedures, requires that for an initial application that all of your policies are submitted. For recertification, you only have to submit recently updated or new policies and procedures that are required by regulations change. So where can you find the resources to help you complete your application? We encourage you to utilize the application guidance that's from the Provider Certification and Compliance Teams unit. This is the same unit that will be reviewing your application. You should also utilize the SDS approved forms in order to complete your application. We also want to make sure that you understand those regulations and conditions of participation, and so we'll show you where those are located as well today. We encourage you to sign up for e-alerts so that you can be informed if there's been any changes to your requirements as a provider. So let's go ahead and go to our main website for Seniors and Disability Services and check out some of these resources. In general, it's really worth the time to go through and thoroughly review all the information offered on this page. But today, I'm just going to highlight a couple of key places where you can access the resources that I just identified previously. So first of all, let's look at PCC's page, or the unit, Provider Certification and Compliance. As I mentioned before, this is the team that's going to be reviewing your application packet. You'll find a lot of helpful information there, as well as contact information. From here, we encourage you to check out the Providers Corner, where you can look at provider certification information. You'll find that application guidance that I was referring to, as well as some frequently asked questions about the certification process. Just want to make sure that you're aware that there are two types of application guidance. One for all home and community-based services, and then another separate application guidance for a personal care service provider. Let's go ahead and open up this application guidance so you can have a look at what this document looks like. You'll see that it goes through what your responsibilities are, gives you some formatting tips, talks about attachments, and then breaks down those core requirements and the policy and procedures. It also identifies some of your required certification forms, which we can go ahead and look at from the SDS forms page after we check this out. Just want to make sure that you're aware that you can utilize this link within this document, and it'll take you to the section where it'll provide you a more in-depth review of the information that's required. So let's go back and look at those other resources, specifically those SDS forms. So below the providers block, we have of interest, and you'll want to go ahead and select approved SDS forms to look at the forms that are going to be utilized in conducting business with SDS. For you, you'll want to go ahead and move to the provider certification forms section. Here you'll see that you have the provider certification forms that may be needed for you to complete your application, including the application itself and the service declarations for the specific services that you would be offering. You may also need to utilize some of the provider certification miscellaneous forms after you become a certified provider and need to update any changes. So what else can I show you that might be helpful? As a new provider, it's crucial that you understand the new regulation regarding settings. Recently, the Center for Medicaid and Medicare, or CMS, issued a requirement that ensures that every agency or provider that's offering services has an environment that ensures the full access of benefits of community living. We encourage you to check out this section for new providers that has an FAQ section, as well as a helpful checklist that can ensure that your agency's environment is going to be settings compliant before you even become certified. The other resource I want to make sure that you're aware of is within the SDS regulations section. Here you're going to see a breakdown per topic of the regulations, and underneath each of those, a breakdown of conditions of participation. You may also want to look at the requirements and scope of Medicaid eligibility under the Regulation 7 AAC 105. But let's go ahead and look at these conditions of participation. You'll see that they're broken down for each service type, as well as the general conditions of participation to be a provider. We encourage you to thoroughly review this information because it provides you with detail on how to conduct your business and participate as a provider. This will cover a lot of information, including the certification requirements, operation requirements, and many other components of conducting your business. So let's go ahead and jump back to the presentation and talk a little bit more about your application. What happens if you submit an incomplete application? What does that mean? Usually it means you're missing a specific document, something is unsigned, or you're missing some of those required policies and procedures that were identified in the application guidance. You do need to resubmit your entire packet to be able to demonstrate that you will be able to meet the provider's responsibilities. If your packet is incomplete in any way, it's not going to be reviewed. You will be instead notified that your application is incomplete and invited to resubmit your application. You may also be referred to training for additional assistance. So when resubmitting your application, make sure you go back to the basics of reviewing that application guidance and those conditions of participation for services. Then from there, compare what the incomplete application says to the guidance. Then reassemble that information, including the missing pieces, and resubmit all of it to the PCC unit through email. You can do that by emailing them at dsdscertification@alaska.gov. Electronic submission of your application packet is preferred. We do ask that you PDF these documents so that they cannot be renderable, and that if your attachments are too large, that you group them into one of two categories, either provider core requirements or an operations manual. You can attach as many attachments as you need, but make sure that they're clearly identified. You also have the opportunity to submit your application as a hard copy if you wish, but in doing so, be sure to utilize only the standard letter size document of 8.5 by 11 inches. Place your documents in order and make sure that they are unbound so that SDS staff in the PCC unit can upload your information into an electronic format. So some final thoughts as you prepare your application. Make sure you know your regulatory responsibilities that are detailed in those conditions of participation and in regulation. Use those resources like that application guidance and be detail-oriented so that your application is complete. You can always reach out to us at the Seniors and Disabilities Services, or SDS, by either contacting the PCC unit or the training unit through these emails that we have listed here. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel through SDS Training and have access to more information about home and community-based services and other certification requirements. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.